Macho Man Randy Savage, one of the most famous and intense wrestlers to ever step foot in the ring. We all know him for his crazy matches, amazing promos, and that wild energy he brought every time he performed. But today, we're not focusing on that. We're talking about something a little bit different. The wrestlers Randy Savage hated working with. That's right, Savage wasn't just a crazy character in front of the camera. Behind the scenes, he had a lot of drama and personal beefs with a bunch of people in the locker room. Some of these are well known, some are a little more speculative, but either way, we're gonna break it all down today. Let's start with a big one, Hulk Hogan. You probably already know about the Mega Powers, right? Hogan and Savage were a tag team that dominated the late 80s. Together, they were unstoppable, and their combined star power was through the roof. But behind the scenes, it was a whole different story. The real problem between Hogan and Savage started with Miss Elizabeth, who at the time was Savage's real-life wife. And if you know anything about Randy Savage, you know that he was incredibly protective of her. The tension between him and Hogan really stemmed from Savage's jealousy over his wife working so closely with Hogan. Savage couldn't shake the feeling that Hogan was getting too close to Miss Elizabeth, and this set off some serious issues backstage. One of the most famous stories comes from a WWF tour in Paris. Hogan helped Elizabeth into the ring, but Savage saw it as something more than just an innocent act. He took huge offense to it and ended up confronting Hogan backstage. Hulk Hogan later admitted that he had no idea how bad it was with Randy, and he was shocked by how much Savage took things personally. This moment behind the scenes led to their on-screen feud, with Savage snapping on Hogan and turning on him in front of the fans. Now you might think this was just a storyline, right? Well, the Mega Powers explosion wasn't just a plot, it was based on real-life tension between the two. It wasn't just about wrestling anymore, it was about personal feelings. And this rivalry between Hogan and Savage wasn't just confined to the ring. It lingered backstage too. Hogan and Savage had several heated arguments in the locker room, and it was clear that things were far from friendly. Next, we have Andre the Giant. Now you might be thinking, how could anyone have a problem with Andre the Giant? After all, he was an absolute legend in wrestling. But believe it or not, Andre and Savage had their issues. The problem here wasn't about anything personal or major, but it did cause a lot of tension. Savage, as you probably know, was big on his look, and one of his signature moves was covering himself in baby oil before every match. He was trying to show off his physique and make it stand out. But Andre, he didn't like it one bit. Andre would constantly complain about the baby oil because it made it difficult for him to get a solid grip on Savage when they were in the ring together. According to Lanny Poffo, Savage's brother, Andre wasn't shy about voicing his disgust. Every time Savage would enter the ring looking shiny and slick, Andre would mutter, "baby oil" in his thick French accent. But here's the thing, Savage wasn't about to change his routine for anyone. He was known for his stubbornness, and this was no exception. He didn't care if Andre didn't like it. He believed in his gimmick and wasn't going to let anyone get in the way of it. Now, Andre being Andre, he didn't let things slide easily either. He decided to punish Savage in the ring. According to Savage himself, Andre would be extra rough with him during their matches, trying to send a message. This wasn't a major feud by any means, but it was definitely an example of backstage tension that carried over into their in-ring work. Savage later admitted that Andre didn't like him, but he still respected him. That respect, however, didn't mean that Savage didn't feel the effects of Andre's frustration. Now this next one is wild. It's Road Warrior Hawk. The story here is a lot more personal and a lot more intense. The Legion of Doom was one of the most famous tag teams in wrestling history, but there was serious bad blood between Hawk and Savage. The beef started over a misunderstanding involving Hawk's wife. According to Hawk, he thought that Savage had made a pass at his wife, which Savage denied. But once the seed of doubt was planted in Hawk's mind, things escalated quickly. The two had a massive fight backstage, and that was just the beginning. There was a second fight that took place at a Kid Rock concert in 1998, and this one got way out of hand. Hawk and Savage were both attending the concert, and when they crossed paths, it was on site. They started fighting again, and this time, it got really physical. Savage and Hawk weren't just throwing punches. The women got involved too. Hawk's wife got hurt during the altercation, And as you can imagine, that didn't sit well with anyone. Hawk's wife actually filed a lawsuit against Savage, and the legal battle went on for years. The lawsuit wasn't even dropped until Hawk's death in 2003. This was serious. It wasn't just a wrestling rivalry or a few heated words. It was a long-standing personal feud that included multiple physical altercations, a lawsuit, and plenty of bad blood. Savage and Hawk never made amends, and this remains one of the most infamous backstage fights in wrestling history. It was a feud that never cooled down and one that Savage carried with him for the rest of his life. Next up, we have the Ultimate Warrior. Now, Warrior was known for his intensity in the ring, but he wasn't exactly Savage's favorite person to work with. One major issue between them was that Warrior wasn't exactly known for being careful with his opponents. In fact, during a match, Warrior accidentally injured Savage by breaking his arm and hand, which kept Savage out of action for a few weeks. Savage didn't take kindly to this. To him, this wasn't just a wrestling accident, it was something that cost him money. And if you know anything about Randy Savage, you know that money was a big deal. Savage wasn't about to let someone mess with his livelihood, so he got his revenge at the Royal Rumble, 1991. During Warrior's match, Savage interfered, and it wasn't a playful interference. Savage swung his scepter at Warrior's head, knocking him out cold. The shot was so hard that Warrior had to be helped out of the ring after that. According to Sergeant Slaughter, who was there, this was Savage's way of getting payback for the injury. Savage wasn't just mad about the injury, he was mad about the fact that Warrior had cost him so much money. But it wasn't just about the injury. Savage also had an issue with Warrior's lack of professionalism. Warrior was known for being a little unpredictable in the ring, and that didn't sit well with Savage, who was all about preparation. Savage liked to plan his matches down to the smallest detail, and Warrior didn't always follow the plan. This mismatch in work styles added a lot of friction between them. They may have had some great matches, but Savage never really trusted Warrior in the ring after that. Now let's talk about Honky Tonk Man. This one is a little more about business than personal beef. In 1987, Savage was supposed to defeat Honky for the Intercontinental Championship on a live TV special. But Honky refused to lose the title to Savage on that platform. He didn't want to lose the belt in front of such a massive audience, thinking it would hurt his character. Savage, of course, was not happy about this. He was ready to make the move and take the IC title, but Honky wasn't having it. Instead, Honky insisted on losing the title anywhere else but on that TV special. So instead of dropping the title, Honky retained, and the plan was changed completely. This left Savage in a tough spot, but instead of just taking it, Savage used this opportunity to elevate himself. He ended up going on to win the WWF World Championship at WrestleMania 4, bypassing the whole IC title feud. But despite the fact that Savage came out on top in the end, he never forgot that Honky Tonk Man refused to do business. It wasn't personal, but it was still a serious professional disagreement. We've also got Ricky Steamboat. Now you might think that since Steamboat and Savage had that amazing match at WrestleMania 3 in 1987, they must have been pretty close behind the scenes, right? After all, that match is still talked about as one of the best matches of all time, and they worked really well together. But if you think that, you'd be wrong. Things weren't as smooth as they seemed. Let me break it down for you. After their incredible WrestleMania 3 match, Steamboat left WWF shortly after. Now, Steamboat wasn't leaving because of any major drama. He just needed some time off to be with his family. But here's where things get a little tricky. Savage had invested so much into their feud. He worked really hard to make it special, and the match they had at WrestleMania was supposed to set the stage for a bigger program. But when Steamboat left right after that huge moment, Savage felt hurt. It was like Steamboat abandoned him right when their story was just beginning. Now, Steamboat did come back to wrestling a little later, but Savage didn't exactly forget that he felt left behind. The thing is, Savage was extremely passionate about his work. He didn't like when things got interrupted or when his plans were changed last minute, especially when he was putting so much effort into it. So when Steamboat left so soon after their big match, Savage probably felt like Steamboat had disrespected him, or at the very least his hard work. They never really had a big falling out or anything like that, but it's clear that Savage was disappointed and frustrated by Steamboat's decision. I'm sure Steamboat had his reasons for leaving, But from Savage's perspective, it was like all the hard work and build-up just went to waste. This whole situation created a bit of bad blood between them. There were no major incidents, but Savage wasn't happy about how things played out with Steamboat. Now let's talk about Ric Flair. Flair is another huge name in wrestling, and like Savage, he was known for his larger-than-life personality. These two men were both alpha personalities in the wrestling world, and when you put two top guys together like that, you're bound to have some issues, especially if they're both trying to be the top dog in the business. And that's exactly what happened with Savage and Flair when they were in WCW together in the 90s. At the time, WCW was trying to build its new generation of stars, and both Flair and Savage were already established, big names. Now, Flair and Savage were very different. Flair was the nature boy, the ultimate showman who thrived on flashy style and being the center of attention. Savage, on the other hand, was all about intensity and discipline in the ring. So already they were coming from two different worlds. That's what made their relationship a little rocky. But things really started to get heated when Flair started making personal jabs about Savage's relationship with Miss Elizabeth. Flair, being the kind of guy who would always try to get under people's skin, began to spread rumors that he'd had a romantic relationship with Elizabeth, which, as you can imagine, really rubbed Savage the wrong way. Savage was extremely protective of Elizabeth, and if anyone even hinted at something like that, it set him off. And Flair, being Flair, wasn't exactly known for backing down from a confrontation. Flair didn't care much about what Savage thought and kept pushing his buttons, taunting him about Elizabeth. This led to a lot of bad feelings between the two. The heat between them wasn't just about business anymore, it was about personal issues. This wasn't just a one-time thing either. Over time, their relationship became more strained, especially when they worked together in WCW. They had a big-time match in the mid-90s, and you could feel the tension between them even though it was part of the storyline. It wasn't just about the match, it was about two top guys fighting for the spotlight and dealing with their personal issues on top of it all. But what really made things messy was that Flair's constant jabs at Savage's personal life weren't just talk. He was trying to get under Savage's skin, which is something that Savage hated. Flair was known to be the kind of guy who would stir the pot, and Savage didn't take kindly to that. The rivalry between them wasn't just a friendly competition, it was a battle of egos and a lot of personal animosity. Eventually, both men found a way to coexist in WCW, but it was clear that they never really became best friends. They were always competitors, and there was always that underlying tension. Even when they worked together, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. So yeah, Savage and Flair were both legends, but their relationship was filled with tension. They each wanted to be the top guy, and Flair's constant teasing about Elizabeth didn't help things. In the end, they had some great matches, but their rivalry was as much about personal pride and respect as it was about the business. Savage was a guy who didn't like people messing with his personal life, and Flair definitely got under his skin. So there you have it. Randy Savage wasn't just a legend in the ring, he was a firecracker backstage as well. From his jealousy with Hogan to his intense battles with Andre, Warrior, and even Honky Tonk Man, Savage had some serious beefs over the years. But no matter what, he always gave it his all in the ring, and his legacy is cemented as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. If you like this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments, which feud do you think was the most intense? Who do you think had the most personal beef with Randy Savage? Thanks for watching, and until next time, ooh yeah, dig it.